problem is we'll talk to someone and he kind of explains that, but then you talk to someone else. Oh, no, man. I read this article by Joe Blow, Outdoor Life. He says, don't ever call when they're looking at you. He said, don't ever call loud. You'll scare every deer away. Oh, don't call when there's one. Oh, and don't, man. You get one to stop me. He's looking. Don't call. That's absolutely the wrong advice. You better call. You better, kind of like my dad said, when you hook that bass, son, keep the line tight. Don't give him a chance. Because that old bass, he'll throw that lure if you let slack in it. Deer and turkey and elk and everything are the same way. Sometimes you can get them hooked and they're coming. And you read the article that says when they're coming, don't call. And when they're looking, don't call. That gives them a chance to, I'm not interested anyway. Boom, off they go. Having a deer looking at me at 80 yards up my way, I got no problem at all calling right at him. Hey, I'm talking to you. Come here.
Well, Mr. Brad Harris, I'm excited to be here. I appreciate letting us come over here and do this.
I'm excited, guys. I look forward to it. Anytime we can talk about hunting and calling and fishing, I'm all for it.
Oh, yeah. Quick shout out to our friends at the Ozark podcast for hooking us up with you. They had you on, and that's how we actually heard about you for the first time. And they were talking, I think, Jacob, and they were like, hey, this guy invented the grunt call. And we're like, what? We're like, we're going to get in the car and drive up there and interview him. And here we are.
And here you are.
And here we are.
And I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, me too. Well, you have an awesome little hangout here. Me and Jacob were just looking at it, talking about it. This is a pretty cool little setup.
Lots of big deer in this room, elk, turkeys, everything. But Brad, I do want to get right into a conversation because we're going to talk a lot about grunt calling, using a grunt call to call in bucks throughout the whole season. But one thing I want to touch on with you early on is you've been doing this for a very long time. You invented the grunt call, and we're going to talk more about that in the conversation. But there has been so much in the media, and also just I think like personal experience with some people where they are so cautious to use a grunt call. They think it might do more harm than good. Not everybody's like that, but there are a lot of people out there like that. And they're also scared to call at a buck when it's looking at them, when they visually can see it. Where do you think that came from? Because you're like the complete opposite, and we're going to talk more about that.
That's interesting because even my dad, who I love the man dearly, and he loved to hunt deer, he never bought into making any noise in the woods when you hunted deer. That's how he was raised, and that's how he raised us boys. It was always be quiet, sit still, keep your eyes open, and you wait those deer out. You know, read the sign, do this, that, and the other. And I can't, I'll always remember when I came out with the grunt call, started making noise in the woods intentionally, hunting whitetails. Dad was like shaking his head. He never, ever bought into the idea. Of course, he quit deer hunting when I was a young man. His health wasn't good. And so he never got to grow into it. But it came from, that's history. That's how most of us older people were taught from our elders. The deer hunting is a quiet, sneaky sport. And the calling, the only noise, and they didn't know, but the only noise the deer made was a snort. And when they did that, they were running for cover. So deer didn't make noise. I've heard that a lot over the years, and all that animals don't make noise. They don't ever, all animals communicate, all of them, in one way or another. And if you can figure out what that communication means, how to mimic it and how to use it, you become pretty effective. So as a young man, I learned real early that, wow, that little weird sound I just made just put a buck 18 yards in front of me. That's pretty interesting. So if it worked once, it's going to work again. And the more I got into it, the more I realized that, calling more is even better. And calling when things are quiet works well. And I've blind called in so many bucks over the years, it's not even funny. And I tell people it's like going fishing. Everybody likes to fish, and whatever you go out in a boat, and you got your line tied on, you got the best lure you got. But if you don't cast, you don't catch. And if you are lazy and you're more out there for enjoying the weather instead of fishing, you're not making as many casts. You're not going to catch as many fish. Man, you may not care. I care. I go fishing to catch fish. The more cast I can make, or the better chances are I've got a hooking up. I can remember my brother and I floating the rivers, and we'd get 1 hour in front. The other guy was in the back. He steered the canoe. Fisherman was in front. You got 1 hour. I tried to make 1,000 casts in that hour. The fastest I could cast and go and cover as much ground, I caught my limit of smallmouth. And when it come an hour, you had to get in the back, and he got up front. And it was multiple. So I realized sitting in the woods and 10, 12, 13 hours a day in a tree stand, and you just sitting there quiet, and you got stuff going on around you, but you're not part of it. You're just sitting there. You're waiting for something to happen. Like, why not cast? Why not throw a sound out there? A natural sound that deer make on a daily basis. Throw it out there. What's it going to hurt? It never hurt me, ever. It done nothing but help me. Many of these deer came to blind calling. I'm in an area because I saw the sign, what I wanted to hunt, the big sign, the amount of sign, whatever. I came in with good wind direction, got a good setup, and now I sit and wait. How can I enhance that? Well, a lot of guys say, no, that's as good as I can do. Nope. That call can reach out to places you can't see. Being raised in the Ozarks, I could see 30 yards from my tree stand. How many bucks were at 150, 200 yards, 300 yards away, browsing, walking, bedded, chasing? What? You don't know that. You're in your little globe, your little realm, but you're not reaching that. You're not casting out once in a while. So I learned to cast. I learned to throw that call every so often from my stand. And every once in a while, you hook up. Here they come. The only time I ever had it hurt me is when I'd make a cast, and next thing I know, my gut's growling. I want to get some crackers or something, and I'm digging in my pack, and the buck coming to the call, I didn't even know it, would see me moving. It was my fault, not the call's fault. You get caught once in a while. So I always tell people, when you make a cast, expect action. They may run in, they may walk in, they may sneak in, or they may just feed your way. You have just changed their direction of travel because of that sound. So it might be a minute, it might be 30 seconds, it might be 10 or 15 minutes later before they get to that call. So you're on red alert. Anytime you make a cast, expect action. And when you do that, you're going to have success. And when you get into when you start adding the rut layers to it, when the bucks are more active because of the pre-rut, rut, post-rut, it just enhances it that much more, and so it's a no-brainer. But that's how it gets. It's the way we were raised, and it also is a confidence thing. If you don't have confidence in your call, which a grunt call is the easiest game call ever, anybody that's breathing can blow a decent grunt call. It takes no technique like turkey calling with the mouth, or duck and goose calling, elk bugling. Takes some technique. A grunt call is the simplest dang tool in the world. It's unreal.
Brad, we're about to go way down that rabbit hole. You were talking about how people didn't think that deer made any sounds back then. When did you realize that they did make sounds, like grunts and everything? Like, when's the first time you heard a deer grunt, or knew someone that heard a deer grunt?
Well, actually, I learned to grunt deer before I ever heard one grunt, if that makes sense. I was working in a mining operation with a bunch of old crusty dudes like me, and we were young then, and all of them hunted, or a big percentage of them hunted, were good hunters. Some coon hunters, some beagle guys, but everybody hunted something. And some of the group hunted a lot of different things and were good at it. And I had made friends with some of those guys, and we hunted together. And during one of our breaks, and one of our 15-minute breaks at the mine, we're sitting there, and one of my little buddies, John Mannion, said, hey, man, he said, my brother, Jim, heard a buck make this sound. I said, really? And he pinched his own, like that, better than that. But anyway, made that little sound, and I said, really? He heard a buck do it? He said, 4-pointer standing right under him. He said, I guarantee you he made it. Well, John showed me the techniques. I started practicing. The next weekend, I got up in a tree. I was hunting. Saw a 6-point buck coming by down Mingo Swamps. He was traveling. He was 80 yards out. I had my recurve, and that's 65 yards too far. And it's like, what do I got to lose? He's not coming. He's going somewhere. He's moving. I pinched my nose, made that sound, and he just stopped. He didn't look my way. He just stopped. I'm like, what the heck? And what do I do now? This is all new to me, but he stopped, and he's listening. I can see his ears. I grunted again, and boy, he threw his head looking right at the direction of my stand. I'm up 25 feet minimum in the swamp. And I thought, okay, he's looking for me. I grunted third time, and he marched right to me. Stopped at 18 yards broadside. I shot under him that far, missed him, clean miss. I figured it was nerves, I don't know. And he ran off. And I wasn't smart enough then to keep calling. He didn't know what happened, but I was learning this stuff. But he ran off. I thought, oh my gosh, what just happened? That's unreal. That was just... So I actually started grunting before I ever heard a buck grunt in the woods. And I mimicked the sound before because of someone sharing that with me, that he had heard it. To that point, I had never, in all the hunting camps and all the old people, and never had anybody ever say they heard a deer make any sound but a snort. And then you could dig into it. There was a bleat deer call on the market. It was called the Alaskan deer call, and it was a bleat. And they were using it up in Alaska on Sitka deer and blacktail, that little bleat sound. And so there was a deer call out there, but there wasn't nothing like that. There was no grunts, and there was no snort calls back then. There was no snort wheeze. Nobody knew they did those things. It was interesting when I learned to do that. I mean, it just all fell back to my upbringing. My grandfather saying, make some noise at the right time, and the right noise, it'll help you kill things like squirrels and turkeys and things like that. Well, I thought, why not work on deer? It just worked for me. So this is all new. We got to dig into this because nobody was doing it. Nobody even heard it. Matter of fact, first time I talked to people about it, they laugh at me. Deer don't do that.
What year was that, do you think?
The year I grunted in my first deer was probably 1977. And I worked in the mine till the late 79. I worked in the mines, and then there was a big strike and got laid off. Well, I ended up going to work for Loman Game Calls in the early 80s. And when I came there, there was a little group of 3 or 4 of us that kept it quiet. We just grunted with our voice. We did our own thing. We started killing deer, manipulating deer, comparing notes with each other. I just happened to go on into the hunting industry. And when I got in the hunting industry, we're talking turkey calls and waterfowl calls, and nobody's talking deer calls. Nobody. No company, no person, no highfalutin outdoor rider or, professional hunter, whoever they may be back then. Not a mention. And I brought it up one day to the owner, Bill Harper of Loam, and I said, hey, there's a call these deer make that is phenomenal. And he, he didn't believe it. He was a deer hunter from Oklahoma and didn't believe it. So I had to show him, and we built the call, and we started showing him, and then the rest is kind of history now.
That's funny that you said you wanted to keep it quiet, because we just interviewed Dan Moultrie a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about when he was coming up with like his trail camera and everything. And when he figured that out, he's like, I didn't tell anybody for like 7 years. He's sitting on one of the biggest inventions ever. And he was like, typical deer hunter, man. He's like, I'm going to keep this to myself.
Well, that's what when we were. Nobody, who would ever think you were going to be in the hunting industry to make you any money or whatever, make a living out of it. I was figuring I was going to work in the mines till I died, or in concrete construction till I died. I never saw going into the hunting industry and making my living and spending majority of my life doing it. It was my passion. It was something I loved to do. But who thought they would do that? So it took me to get in the hunting industry and start working on, they brought me in to work on turkey calls for them because their turkey call line was weak. and their box calls sounded like trash. And some of the things they were selling, I wouldn't use. So they brought me in to make these a little better, make these more user friendly. So it was all about turkey for the most part. And when I got there, it's like we're missing the boat here because this deer thing's way bigger than the turkey thing. So that's how it came about. It's you keep those secrets from you for the most part, and I'm hoping there's a few secrets out there that other hunters have that they're not sharing that someday we'll see. I haven't seen any in many, many, many years, but I'm hoping there's still a few things out there that we can discover.
Mm-hmm. Now, when did it go from like just pinching your nose and making a grunt call to, like, I guess when did you get more technical about it? Like trying to find something where you could get more volume or a different tone or just fine tuning it?
That came about when I went to work and explained to Mr. Harper that this grunting thing works on whitetails. So now I'm in the industry. I am tinkering with parts. I mean, they were one of the largest game. They were like number 3 in age behind Olt and Falk, and then Loman. They came in business in 1947 in Kansas City. They were known for their waterfowl and their crow call. And they were branching into turkey. They branched into turkey in the mid-'70s. I came along in the late 70s, early 80s as a turkey caller, and he thought I had a little bit of knowledge of how to make things work, and brought me on board. Well, that put me in the middle. I mean, I didn't know turkey call parts from anything, but now I'm stepped into a big turkey, call industry, manufacturing, and I see all these parts, reeds and tubes, and I didn't know nothing about them. But once I got into them, got it there and could see it. Oh, it's like tuning a musical instrument. You can shorten this reed or add this pressure or put it in a bigger funnel, put it in a different, all that started clicking with me. And I realized now, he said, can you think we can make that sound? I said, yeah. I said, because I was a terrible duck caller at that time. And I'd blow his duck calls, and every once in a while I'd hear hit a sour duck flat note. It sounded kind of like a grunt. So I went out there, and he said, well, see if you can make something up. Went out there and took all these duck parts and different barrels, started playing with them, and came up with a sound that was pretty dang close. And went back into his office, said, here it is. Blew the call, made a little grunt sound, and he just shake his head. He said, I ain't never heard nothing like that. And I said, well, most people haven't, if they're telling the truth. So I said, but it's real. It works. It'll work. This call will work. I promise you. Well, we spent that next fall just using the call, and it worked, and it worked. And we came out with that first grunt call and laughed off the stage. I was laughed at. I was belittled. I was a young guy. I mean, this was like early 80s, and I was a young guy. Now I'm doing seminars and telling people how to, or teaching people how to hunt deer. And I'd go through all the rubber boots and the scent free and the reading the sign, and you go through all that, tree stand placements, and on and on and on. And at the end of the seminar, I said, now I want to share something with you that's not very well known. It's not known at all. And I said, there is this little secret that's coming out that, boy, it works, guys. And I would say, deer make this grunt sound, and they will come to it in the fall. And I picked the call up, and I'd blow it. Well, half the people in the audience would be busting out laughing, laughing at me. Because I'm a young guy, and in the audience, there was a lot of old-timers. And they come up to me afterwards and say, Sonny, you did a good seminar until you got to that stupid call. I ain't never heard a deer do that. I've hunted deer 50 years. I ain't never heard that sound. Sir, I'm sorry, but it's true. It works, So it took a couple years to convince people. Took a lot longer than that for most, but a couple years once Eli Haydale and that group, they built a grunt call. And a couple years down the road, Knight and Hale built a grunt call. All of a sudden, you had 2 or 3 or 4 manufacturers building grunt calls and talking about it. And all of a sudden, people started trying it, Most of them reluctantly. But it just took time. People realized, dang. Because when you realize that, hey, if you only blow it when a deer's out of range, not going to give you an opportunity. If you only used it then, how can it hurt you? Back then, $6, $7 for a call. How can that hurt you if he's already gone or leaving? If you only use it then, it's worth the buy. So you could bring on some logical explanations like that, and people start buying into it. It took quite a while to get people to get aggressive with it and go out to actually try to call a buck in. It took years for that, and it took a lot of research and a lot of sorting out. I mean, you get so much false information with it, but people that didn't know what they were even talking about would be preaching on grunting deer and how to, and they were off the mark, many places. So it took a while for that to straighten out. Now you talk to people, I talk to them same old men that laughed at me, they're going to say, oh, I've been doing that since I was a kid. No, you haven't. You're lying. You didn't invent it. You didn't come up. You never even heard of it till I told you about it. And that's kind of the way it was. It was interesting when he came out with a guy by the name of Larry Richardson was working deer pens in the University, I may have this wrong, University of Texas, a university in Texas. He was involved in their deer pens, a biologist, I think, student at the time. And he contacted me and he said, we recorded it. We got it on tape. I got it on tape. And he sent me that tape. He called the cassette, it was called The Acoustics of Whitetail Deer. I don't even know what that means. But anyway, he sent me the cassette, and he did capture a grunt from pen-raised bucks. And so that added some validity down the road that, hey, a biologist said it worked. He actually captured it in a pen. Well, that gave some more validity. It just took a while, years, to people realize that, hey, this young guy from Missouri ain't stupid. I mean, it worked for him. I mean, he's just telling you what happened. And so that gave some credibility when other people started documenting the sounds and the success with the calls. And so it worked great. Now it's off and running. Not everybody, but a lot of people are trying it. We're all looking for the best, for the guarantee, the fixes and whatever. That's never changed in human nature. It's not magic. There's days you'll swear it is, and there's other days you're going, didn't work quite so well today. But people want to be successful, and they realize this tool can help, and it has some validity to it now.
All right, everybody, it's November. It's the most wonderful time of year for a lot of us deer hunters. But I wanted to make a special announcement and give you guys a heads up on something coming up in 2026. The dates for the Mobile Hunters Expo in 2026 just got released. We're going to have a booth at the Dalton, Georgia show. It's going to be in Dalton, Georgia again, August 14th through the 16th at the Dalton Convention Center 2026. So y'all make plans to come see us at that. Wanted to give you guys plenty of heads up there. They're also doing another show in Wilmington, Ohio at the Roberts Center, which is going to be July 31st through August 2nd. Last year at those shows, they had a killer lineup of guest speakers, including Bobby Worthington. And at the Southern show last year, it was a packed house. It was an awesome seminar. It's not something you want to miss. So wanted to give you guys plenty of heads up on that. Don't forget about it. Next year, next August 2026, Mobile Hunters Expo. We'll see you guys there.
Something every deer hunter gets excited about is when a cold front's pushing through. And one thing that onX Hunt just released that I'm really excited about is their new weather feature built into the app. What it allows you to do is be able to scroll throughout all your pins, whether it's in the same state, same county, or across the country, and get accurate weather data directly from that pin location with the closest weather station. This eliminates the need for multiple apps. Also, it has barometric pressure, but one other thing is it has accurate moon data. So for the guys that like hunting moon phase, moon positioning, all that kind of stuff, it shows all that in the app as well. So all you moon phase guys, moon positioning guys, we got you covered. So now onX Hunt is your one-stop shop for whitetail hunting, getting all the accurate information that you need, whether it's mapping, weather, looking at trail camera data, and so on. It's a one-stop shop for you. So if you want to try onX Hunt this fall, you can use the code SOUTHERN to save on your membership. Know where you stand with onX Hunt. So on the podcast, y'all hear us talk all the time about finding overlooked spots, especially when you're hunting a hunting club or public land. But what about when you're in the market to buy property and you're trying to find something that's overlooked that not everybody has access to? And that's when trying to find a property that's offline comes into a huge factor, and having an agent that can help you do that, like Slade Johnson. So Slade, what is a overlooked or off-market property, and why would somebody want to try to purchase something like that versus what's available to everybody online?
Yeah, so what I've seen with real estate is there's a lot of properties and landowners that are willing to sell, but they don't want to list their property, especially the really nice tracts that maybe they don't want people to know what kind of deer they have on their property. So it's kind of just word of mouth through agents. And what I've done is really build a database of offline tracts that can be bought in the Southeast. Obviously, Alabama is my core area, but whether that's Tennessee, Mississippi, Georgia, we've got landowners that have property that can be bought. So if you're looking for something that's special, it's a good chance we can help you find it before it hits the market.
Yeah, if you want to have the opportunity to kill really world-class deer, but deer you would probably go to Iowa and Kansas to go and hunt. You can actually find that in deep south, and Slade actually just showed us a property that is off-market, but they are killing giant deer every single year. So it is possible for everybody. So if y'all have any questions, you can, of course, reach out to Slade. Slade, how would someone get a hold of you?
Yeah, the best way is probably just give me a call. My number's 205-499-3858. I know we put our number everywhere nowadays, but just let me know if you're looking for something. And that also equates to selling. If you got a property you want to sell, I've got a list of buyers that are looking for tracks. So maybe we can sell it before it hits the market. So we can help you on both sides.
So if you're in the market to buy or sell property, you can reach out to our buddy Slade Johnson with Tut Lane Company.
More big bucks probably get killed on clear cuts than anything else, especially when it comes to hunting in the Southeast. And back behind me, I've got a really good example of what makes a good spot in a clear cut. So there's two main ingredients you want to look for. You want to look for low spots, and you want to look for habitat diversity. Right here behind me, I've got both of those. We've got this more fresh cut. It's just got some grasses and some saplings in it, but enough that a deer's probably going to feel hidden in it. They're going to want to be in it. And then this hill rolls off, and back behind me over here, we've got a pine thicket. And right there in that lowest spot, this clear cut meets that pine thicket, which is perfect. So I've got my two key ingredients meeting right in the same spot. That's how I can look at this clear cut that's over 100 acres, and I can narrow it down to the spot within the spot. Now, one challenging thing about hunting these spots that you got to watch out for is you could have a deer pop out at 50 yards, but you could also have one pop out at 450. For that reason, I like carrying a pair of range-finding binoculars. These are the brand new Ranger 3000s from Vortex. They've got great glass. They've got a great price point. They're thin and they're lightweight. They fit my bino harness just perfect. The reason I like carrying a pair of range-finding binoculars is so I don't have to fumble with two separate objects, like get my binos up, see at the shooter, and then try to get the rangefinder out. I can do all that at the same time with these, which is going to save me valuable seconds. And if you've hunted something like this, you know that a few seconds can literally completely make or break your hunt. So if you want to check out the Ranger HD 3000s from Vortex, go to eurooptic.com, use the promo code Southern10. It's going to get you a discount on these binoculars or any other optics from Vortex. So y'all go to eurooptic.com, use that code Southern10. It's going to get you a discount on any Vortex products.
If you've been watching or listening to the show over the last couple of years, you've probably heard me talk about I like a little bit bigger pack. Last year I was using the Ranger 22 and actually was surprised how well I could use that pack all the way into late season, carrying extra layers in and have some modularity there. But I love modularity in a backpack, and that's where I really like the new Ranger 33 from Latitude Outdoors. The Ranger 33 is the bigger brother of the Ranger 22 backpack, and a couple features I really like outside of just the bag being a little bit bigger, so a little more storage in the actual pack itself, but is the bigger panel on the back of it. This allows for your sticks to run really clean vertically, but also be able to pack a little bit more layers if you need to on the outside of your pack that you're gonna put on once you get to your tree. Having a bigger pack is something that's really nice, especially as you get in the late season, you carry a few more layers with you, or like me, you wanna carry a few extra Little Debbie snacks. So if you're looking for a modular pack that can scale up or scale down depending on the time of the season, check out the Ranger 33 from latitudeoutdoors.com.
Brad, I want to talk about some of the misconceptions around grunts in a little bit, but one of the things I wanted to ask you right up front was, what is your opinion on different kinds of deer grunts, as in like a tending grunt versus a buck roar or something like that? Is a grunt just a grunt to you, or are there different types?
It's a grunt. Grunt is a grunt. Here's where I'll differ from lots of people. But a grunt is a grunt. A soft grunt, you can call it a contact grunt. You can call it a tending grunt. You can call it whatever you want. Basically, you're saying, I'm a deer, I'm here over here. quietly. I'm a deer. I'm over here. And then when you pick the volume up and you blurt it out a little bit louder, that's a roar. That might be, but it's a grunt. It's just a louder, more aggressive grunt. And I see the difference. The only two differences I see is volume and aggressive tone. There is such a thing as a dominant grunt. I call it more of a frustrating grunt. It's a sound that bucks make either when they're completely frustrated, and it could be for various reasons. They're frustrated because they can't hook up. You say, well, that's not, it is possible. They're frustrated because they can't find the girl they're wanting at the time. It's taking longer, or they're just worn down and they're just in that state of mind. They just beller out a grunt, or they're very aggressive and they'll beller out what I call a frustrating grunt. And I use that pretty regular. A lot of people won't, but I use it pretty regular when I'm hunting, especially in the peak of the rut. And it's just so loud. But it's nothing but a loud, super loud grunt. You can read any connotation to it you want. That buck's frustrated. No, he's mad. No, it's a roar. Well, I don't know for sure. No, neither do you. But it's a loud, aggressive style of grunt. And it reaches out there a long ways. And I've only heard dominant bucks do that. I can't prove the little bucks don't do it. I have only heard, personally, mature bucks beller like that. What we call a buck roar. Or, I call it a frustrating grunt. Loud, dominant sound. So there's basically two styles for me.
Could you demonstrate it on your grunt call?
Yeah. Stand there and get the thing. A typical contact grunt, just a little, deer do that year round. It can mean anything. I'm content. I'm fine. Hey, come here. Oh, I'm over here. I don't know. You read in what you want. It's just a grunt. It's a contact type grunt. And when they're chasing a doe, they might be going, and you can say, that's a tending grunt. Okay, whatever you want. It's a grunt. And I'm chasing a doe, and I'm stop, come here, come back, stop. And, so I don't but it's the volume of it that triggers me. I can do that when bucks are close. The wind's not blowing. I'm not calling long distance. They're right on top of me. I don't need a lot of volume. All I want to do is say, hey, I'm a deer, come here. And let you decide when you get here what that meant. The other one is the louder buck roar. It's much louder, more aggressive. What does it mean? I don't know. I can't read his mind at that time. I don't know, but they do it. I only hear mature bucks do that. I'm sure the less mature. I just haven't seen it, so I can't tell you. The only ones I've heard do it is mature buck. That's why I like to use it. Because one, it reaches out there. I'm a big stickler on volume. 99.9% of the grunt calls are not loud enough. And people argue with me. Or I'm just telling you, for me, most of them I will not even put in my pack, because if I'm in a tight situation in the Ozarks, I don't need a lot of volume for the most part, or a close-in deer. Okay, that's great. But when I went and started hunting places like Kansas and Nebraska and South Dakota, it's like, man, I got to fly here. But anyway, I'm sitting in a little linear strip of trees along a creek, and I can see a mile across the prairie, and there's deer out there running and chasing. And I'm sitting here with my little soft grunt call that most manufacturers build. It's useless, absolutely useless, So you're sitting there and you got a deer a half a mile away in the wide open, and you're going, because that's all the call will do. I really quickly realized I need some range. And so I started working on other calls, but to fit those hunting conditions. Now, I not be in the open prairie. You can sit here in the Ozarks, and you boys know that in Alabama, you're sitting in the timber, and that wind's howling, and you're up there after one of your target bucks, whatever that may mean, and your little call just don't reach 40 yards, 50 yards in that 25-mile-an-hour wind. It's not a bad call. It's just not designed for that condition. So the frustrating loud buck roar type grunt is great, but it's also a great reacher. It 5 times gives me the distance over a standard grunt in bad conditions or long range calling, you know. So I'm not beyond doing that. And I use that loud, dominant type grunt to reach out there. Now, at a half a mile away, what's that buck hearing? He hears it though. And he can't tell you at a half a mile away. That's a frustrated 4.5-year-old that had a bad night with mama. He can't tell you that, but he hears it. And that gets his attention. And that many times is all it takes for him to end up in your lap. So it's common sense. You could read, and people, it's human nature to try to break things down and give everything here's a reason. I'm okay with that. But I try to also keep an open mind, you know, like that deer, why did that deer come? I'm not sure, you know, what he thought I was doing or what he thought I was imitating. The one thing I am sure of is he's got to hear it first. He's got to hear that sound. If you don't hear it, and it's led into a lot of misinformation, not intentionally, but just not well thought out misinformation where guys say, well, don't grunt too loud. Never grunt. Deer don't grunt loud. Oh, they make that little soft sound. You're right. That little soft sound made for a deer's ears up close, not for a human ear, and not for a deer's ears far away, you know, are bad conditions. So you got to have volume. And then you have common sense. Yeah, I got a buck 30 yards and it's brushy. I need him to move a little bit or he's starting to walk away. I don't need that. You know, you're going to scare the bejeebies out of him. So it's just common sense. I need that. Oh, and then I need to follow it up. So the volume is the key. Always think about your conditions, where you're hunting, the terrain, the weather conditions, the distance. Think about it. If you don't think you're reaching it, you're not. And also keep in mind when the conditions are great, optimal, your sound's carrying good. Think about that too. Call that way. But I always rev it up. I start out soft and easy, even from optimal conditions, and then I turn it up a notch or two every so often because I want to reach out as far as I can. It's like casting that lure, making that long cast, you know. So it's common sense. It really is. Problem is, we'll talk to someone and he kind of explains that, but then you talk to someone else. Oh, no, man. I read this article by Joe Blow, Outdoor Life. He says, don't ever call when they're looking at you. He said, don't ever call loud. You'll scare every deer away. Oh, don't call when there's one. Oh, and don't, man. You get one to stop and he's looking. Don't call. That's absolutely the wrong advice. You better call. You better... Kind of like my dad said, when you hook that bass, son, keep the line tight. Don't give him a chance. Because that old bass, he'll throw that lure if you let slack in it. Deer and turkey and elk and everything are the same way. Sometimes you can get them hooked and they're coming. And you read the article that says when they're coming, don't call. And when they're looking, don't call. That gives them a chance to, I'm not interested anyway. Boom, off they go. So I'm one of those, I like to cast and I like to hook and I like to keep reeling, you know. And having a deer looking at me at 80 yards up my way, and I'm confident in my reel tree camouflage and my tree stand and my blind, I got no problem at all calling right at him. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Come here. And you keep them hooked, you keep reeling. And that's a tough one for a lot of hunters. They won't keep reeling because the magazine article says don't. So it's common sense. Use it. Use your head, and it'll work out, you know.
A question on that, calling at deer that you can see and that can see where you're at. Are you setting up in a specific way to call at deer? Like, are you setting up where maybe there's a brush top next to you that he can't see behind? Or do you think that matters? I mean, you're just in the wide open and he can see that there's not a deer there, but you're like, just keep calling anyway?
I don't set up any different. I take the best setup I can get. I don't really worry about, obviously worry about backdrop if you're in a tree stand and sticking out and you know, if you're skyline, all those typical things. But no, I don't set up any different for calling. I've had too many deer too many deer just throw caution to the wind and come charging, regardless if you're sitting out in the open or whether you're in a tree. Now I want to be hidden. I want my backdrop. I want all that. I don't worry about that. I don't let that bother me. That's just something I can't control. It's funny. My little grandson, he's 13, 14, I guess. He was 14 last fall when I took him deer hunting. Had an 8-point buck come out across an open field, and we're sitting by the only tree in the field in blaze orange. And this buck we decided we didn't want to shoot. Actually, he'd already killed his buck. It was a buck I didn't want to shoot. And he's going across an open bean field, and I said, call to him. He grabs his grunt call and he blows, and the deer keeps walking. I said, call louder. He blows louder, the deer stops. I said, call to him again. And I'm talking to him. I'm giving him instruction. Call to him again. That buck turns and looks at it. I said, keep calling. Call to him again. Yep, I've got him hooked. Keep real. He brought that deer all the way to us in the wire. And here we are, 2 orange pumpkins sitting there in the middle, basically the middle of the field. And I videoed it on my phone. It was and he'd look at me because he was nervous. Papa, he's looking. Call to him. He'd grunt. That buck would walk closer. He's looking right at us. It confuses the heck out of some of them. And that's the best part, you know. They just get so wrapped in that call. What's that? What are they doing over there? I hear him. I can't see him. I'm going to go see him. I got to find out. And yet he's looking right through us, basically looking right past us. And my little grandson just manipulated that deer. The footage is great if it wasn't on my cell. I just use my cell phone, but it's just awesome because I'm talking to him and he's reluctant to call because the deer's looking. You told me never to move when they're looking. Hey, we're not going to shoot this deer. We don't care. We're playing. We're figuring him out. Call to him. And he did, you know. It was a real nice 8-point, 125, 30-inch 8-point. Great video. A lot of fun. He learned a lot from that segment right there. I mean, he brought the deer from 150 yards to probably 35 yards. And the deer would leave. I called to him. He'd grunt him again. He'd stop, turn, walk, look. Could have killed him with a rock, you know. So I don't let other things interfere with my calling process. I try to make the best setup I can, but I'm relying on the call to do the trick. The only time, and you can't help it, you get certain deer that will instinctually, especially some of the older deer, if you give them too much time, they'll go downwind on you. And that happens. You're not doing anything wrong. You're trying to make the best of the situation as it is handed to you. And so that happens once in a while. But here's what I figured out. A lot of times we allow it to happen because we don't keep reeling. You give them time, like quit calling because they're coming to you. You give them time to start thinking and let their natural instincts kick in. Just give them a little bit of time. They'll naturally go downwind. Rattling, same way. Guys, oh my God, they'll rattle. Here comes a bucket to throw the horns down. Like, man, keep the pressure on keep them coming straight. Don't give them time to, what are they doing? He stopped. I don't hear him no more. Stands there lit, and then next thing you know, he's easing downwind because he can't see or hear what's going on. So we bring some of that upon ourselves because of being a little reluctant to continue the call because maybe what we read or what somebody told you, you know.
So what's the big difference for you between calling at a deer that you see versus blind calling at a deer? And I know we'll have a lot on this because Jacob's had a lot of luck blind calling deer. I've had very little luck blind calling at deer.
Yeah. And that's, that's going to happen. We're not all sitting in the same place, the same deer at the same time, you know. For me, calling to a deer you can see, you're reading the deer. And I learned that from duck and goose hunters back in the day. When I started duck and goose hunting and got with some good old salty duck and goose hunters, and I'd watch them work, and why'd you call then? Or I'm reading the ducks. You know, there's times you pull them, there's times you coax them. There's times you're demanding, there's times you're soft. You read the ducks. Okay, makes sense to me. I didn't know how to read ducks, but I was learning that just set off the whole new realm for me of wanting to, okay, read the animal. So I learned from kind of reading the waterfowl, and then started looking and reading all the animals that you hunt, reading, watching a gobbler come in. Is his snood limp or is his snood straight up? If it's straight up like this, he's very alert. If it's hanging down like that, you got a little leeway. So same way with squirrel. You watch the animals and read them. So when you can call to a buck, you can tell. Did he hear me? Did he stop? Is his ears moving? Is he trying to catch where'd that come from? You start reading. Then you blow the call and he's looking. Okay, now he heard me. Okay, I got that. Now, do you continue to call, which I generally do, depending on how far he is or what kind of situation I'm in? But you heard me. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Come on. And so you can read them. You can see if they're getting, going to try to cut down wind. I need to either pick up the calling, not let that happen. A lot of things come into it, but you're able to see them and read them and call accordingly. Blind calling is like fishing. I mean, it's like casting a lure. The spot looks right, you make a good cast. For me, it's feel out of a tree stand or a blind, mostly a tree stand, that I'm sitting there, 15 minutes has gone by, nothing, I haven't seen anything, I haven't heard anything. I'll just throw a couple grunts. Nothing to it, You're just fishing. All you're doing is making a cast. And it's so simple. And to make that cast, remember what I said earlier about look at your conditions. Look where you're setting. How loud do I need to call to reach the distance I'm trying to reach? Whether you're setting an open field and you need to call that call to be heard 200 yards, or whether you're just needing the call to reach out 50, 60, 70 yards in the brush. You just read the conditions and call to that. So you're just casting, and there's no time limit. I call by feel. A lot of things trigger me to call. I hear a crow. It's dead quiet. All of a sudden, the crow he's seeing something. He's talking to something. You don't know what he's talking to. Could be a squirrel. It could be looking at a coyote. It could be looking at a buck deer. You don't know. I'm sitting over here. He's over there. But that gives me a reason to go that direction. It's just trying to take advantage of it. A crow alerted you that something's going on. We don't know what it is, but it might be a buck. It might. Squirrel, same way. Boy, old squirrel gets to barking. And I've watched squirrels bark at strutting gobblers and mature bucks many, many, many times. And they'll give them away a lot of times. Now, they'll bark at everything else. They'll bark at a limb falling out of a tree, and they'll bark at another squirrel quarter mile away is barking. They'll jump up on a limb and start barking too, but there's something that creates that bark. And it may be a big deer, it may be a wild turkey, it may be a coyote, maybe a bobcat. You don't know, but it's something. Something's making him bark. Something's got his attention. So I'm sitting over here in my little half acre, and the squirrels are barking over there for whatever reason. I'm going to join in. I'm going to blow that call. I may cast 2 or 3 or 4 calls that way and watch and listen. It's just a guess. It's a crapshoot. But you can sit there, and if you don't take advantages of those, and that happens a lot if you think about it, you hear things you can't identify from your tree stand maybe 20 times a day. And most of us would just sit there, a lot of us would just sit there and go, I wonder what that was. Well, I heard something. Wonder what that was. You just don't. Okay. Well, I don't wonder. I do wonder, but I want to say, well, what if that's a buck? I better throw something that way. Or I'd be sitting there calling an old gobbler, and he gets quiet on me. Next thing you know, squirrel starts barking over here. Pretty obvious where the gobbler's at. I mean, it's common sense hunting, and you're taking advantage of everything you can, and it's awesome. I mean, and when it comes together. And so to answer the other part of the question, I might cast a call out every 15 or 20 minutes, blow a call that way, blow a call that way, and put it away. And the key is what I said earlier is stay alert, because you never, ever know. And you say you haven't had great luck at it. You have. You're going to be way more alert than you are.
Oh, yeah.
And because you know what can happen. That's the way I am. I am confident that one of my calls is going to bring a deer, because I've had some of my biggest deer come running. I mean, I knew they were in the general area. I didn't know where, but I was hunting them because I scouted them. And I knew that country would hold good deer. But up to that point in time of killing him, I hadn't heard him, seen him, or smelled him, or nothing. But I blew that grunt call, and all of a sudden you hear, and here they come trotting in. Some of them running in, and occasionally some sneaking in. You just never know. But the key is, like, I just made a cat. I just cast the lure out there. Now, don't let it sink to the bottom. Forget about it. Start reeling. Pay attention, because sooner or later something's going to bite that and come following it in. And you got to be ready for it at all times. It's phenomenal.
Brad, do you have a good story about, I don't know if it was maybe one of your first big bucks you killed or just a memorable story of a buck you killed by blind calling?
Yeah. Several, actually. One in particular, I was filming one of our videos, Whitetail Challenge 5 or 6 or 4, somewhere in there. And I had a young man filming. We were up in a tree. We were up pretty high in a big tree. I had good buck sign around. We're in Kansas. And, man, I mean, it was just slow that morning. I was just dead calm and just nothing moving. It was just weird. And so, we're up at 6 o'clock in the morning. We're hunting by 7 o'clock. I hadn't seen or heard a thing. I blind grunt 3 or 4 times, put the call up, wait, 7:15, nothing. I blind grunt 2 or 3 times, put the call up, and me and him are talking, and we're watching. He's a good hunter. He's watching alert. 7:30, I thought, well, I'm not watching my watch, actually, but it felt like I better call again. Grab the call, but that way. I literally pull the call out of my mouth, and I can hear off the hill running at full speed. Literally had just enough time to grab my bow from the hanger, I wasn't using release then, get my fingers on the string, and that deer was standing 15 steps with his nostrils flaring. And he was 176-inch, 11 point, had 14-inch spread. That's what is so memorable about. He's just so tight, but he's just so massive. He's over on the wall. And out of, here we are, nothing's going on, and 3 series of grunts, and it puts a dandy buck 15 yards from me. He had no idea he was looking for a buck activity in his area, and he was hooked, and he was 15 steps. He's broadside. It was pretty much over. And it's like, tracked him up. He didn't go 60 yards and went up. It's like, good Lord bless us with an awesome experience. I mean, it was nothing that we really did. And the call, it's the simplest thing in the world to make that sound. And the call did it. The call made it happen. And several stories like that over the years.
If you had to analyze your success calling using a grunt call, is it more so calling to a deer you physically can see or blind calling? Anymore,
it's probably 50-50. I mean, because, there's a lot of deer today, and you're always got deer in sight. This isn't the 70s, when I grew up in the Ozarks. You might not see a buck the entire bow season, Now you go to a place and you might see 15 bucks in an evening hunt. Wow. And that's not uncommon. We've just blessed with a great deer pop, and it's even better a few years ago. I mean, we were blessed in the boom of whitetails and wild turkeys. So I find myself today, calling equally about, if I'm seeing them, I'm calling to them. If I ain't seeing them, I'm still calling. So it's a 50-50. The key is the call is always there. It's paid off for me so many times. Killed deer that I would have never been able to kill without it. Many, many, many times. And I can't tell you how many I passed up that I didn't shoot that came to the call because of various reasons. But it gives me the opportunity, and it's just a no-brainer. It's just simplest thing call ever made.
Also, talking about calling to a deer that you can see, so you're not blind calling, you physically can see the buck. You know, you're talking about calling to him all the way to he's pretty much in bow range before you put the call down. How do you go about doing that without alerting him looking up from the call?
That's common sense again. You just got to watch and read the deer. You got to watch his eyes. You got to see where he's looking, what he's looking for. You got to be careful. A lot of times I don't have much movement, I've got the call, it's not like you're up there doing this. You got the call right here and you got your bow here and you're giving a soft grunt. It's just common sense. You got to watch, if he's looking dead up there at me, I'm not moving, I'm not moving. But if the minute he turns his head or takes his eyes off me, he gets a grunt. It's like, I'm talking to you. No, don't go away. No, don't go downwind. I'm still talking to you. Come on. It's something you just got to be alert and pay attention to. And it's come from experience. Like I said, it's equally as bad not to call a lot of times because you're going to lose him for various reasons, and we've talked about many of them. So I find it better that I'm leaning towards the edge of aggression for most of my calling. That's across the board. That's from every animal, and I'm a caller. I go to the woods to communicate with wildlife, and it's paid off abundantly for me all these years because that's what I go for. I'm not afraid of it. I know it's a tool, and it helps me be successful.
And I think you made a really good point about when guys call, whether it's using a grunt call or rattling, buck shows up, they stop calling, and instantly that buck, he looks around for a little bit and then he starts circling downwind because he doesn't hear it anymore, versus like him coming right into it because he can keep pinpointing exactly where it's coming from. I mean, that it makes sense. And again, we've heard that. We've interviewed a few guys who love to rattle, but they always talk about, like, you almost need to set your stand up where you're almost looking kind of downwind, where you can shoot downwind or close to being downwind, because after you get done rattling, he's coming downwind more times than not if he's a mature deer. So it's a really good point on that. Also, one thing that we've heard, and I had this thought process too until we interviewed our buddy Richard Fott, who's a big time grunt caller from Arkansas. He loves grunting in deer, has a lot of success doing it, but there's a lot of people, and I was one of these people that was afraid a grunt call was going to scare deer. Not only scare a buck, but scare does in the area. I quickly learned after talking to Richard and actually doing it around deer, it doesn't. But I'm sure you've heard that a lot as well.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, what would you explain to people about that? Like, it's not going to spook deer if you're using it correctly in the right manner, where a lot of people think it's just going to scare everything out of the woods.
Just tell them, you ever hunt turkeys? Turkeys are vocal year round. Do a hen scare, a gobbler? Or a gobbler yelp scare a hen away? No. It's communication. It's natural. What scares the deer is you either calling at the right time, moving at the wrong time, doing something you did. It's generally not the call. The only time the call really is if you startle a deer by blowing the call real loud and it's standing right under you. But I've got video, tons of video from way back in the day, because I went out to intentionally, because I heard it so much from people that didn't know deer even made a grunt. Oh my God, you're going to scare the deer. I intentionally would blow a deer under me and blow the call loud. And most of the time, with no ill effects. Occasionally one would get spooky and run off. But I had video, a buck would be standing under me and I'd go, bleh, and you could see him shake, like getting ready to, and go back to being calm, So I don't buy into it. It's all baloney. It goes back to common sense. Use your head while you're hunting. Be careful not to do something stupid yourself to attract attention or spook the deer, but lean towards the more aggressive side. I lean to more, so should I call or don't call? I'm probably going to call, okay? I lean towards the call side, and I don't worry about it spooking deer. I've had does come looking for me, grunting, thinking it was a buck. And a lot of guys say, well, I'm going to tell you, you can't tell. You can take a 3.5-year-old doe and a 3-year-old buck or a 2-year-old buck, and they give a little grunt, you can't tell me the age and sex of that deer. And a lot of guys, oh, those don't do this and those don't do that, and bucks grunt. No, come on. That makes good article material, makes good reading for guys that don't hunt or think they're hunters but don't hunt. It makes no sense. You can't do it, It's like, see, I know 250-pound guys that I won't call them that, but they talk like girls. High-pitched voice. You can't hear their voice and tell me what size he is or how old he is. It's ridiculous. But it sells magazine articles and it makes you look smart. It's not common sense. You got to use common sense. It's all simple and easy. And that's where we fall. I don't tell people rely on the grunt. It's just a tool. If you go out there and blow it like a Pied Piper, like some fool, somebody will take it away from you and slap you. Because it's not, it's not magic. It's a tool. You use it correctly. It's like using a hammer or a saw, whatever. If you don't know how to use it and use it incorrectly or dangerously, it's probably going to hurt you. But it's a tool. It won't hurt you. It'll help you if you use it correctly. And use it correctly is generally just common sense. And forgetting what the book says most of the time. Not all the time. Most of the time.
Also, talking about, again, there's some guys that have more success calling than others. Like Greg's example, me and Andrew. Like there was hunts where we were hunting within 500 yards of each other. And I'm calling some little bucks, but they're responding to grunting. And he's like, ain't nothing coming in. Like, that's the common phrase. Have you grunted in a deer?
I mean, I've grunted in deer, but it
Okay.
just, I haven't had a ton of luck with it.
But one thing, one reason I want to kind of talk about this is one thing you mentioned earlier that's very important if you're going to be calling is also setting up an area that has some sign, and is an area that you already have confidence in, that especially if you're hunting a target buck or you're hunting a mature buck, it's got the sign there, it's got everything there that you're looking for. You're not necessarily doing that in some wide open woods where there's very little sign that there's even deer present.
Correct.
So that's a big aspect of the woodsmanship aspect. Like, you're not just going out there. Now, I'm not saying Andrew does this. I'm just saying example for people is you're not just going out into the woods randomly and calling. You're trying to put yourself in a high odd spot and then implement calling to bring that deer in so you can get a good bow shot on.
Yeah. No doubt that goes back to, again, like you say, woodsmanship and understanding the area you're hunting, because you can be on the same 3,000 acre farm, let's say, and you got 5 or 6 guys hunting, and each guy's got 300 acres, and the one guy's 300 acres has more deer. It just holds more deer. Well, he's going to have more success with calling if he's using his head than the guy. Now I'm not saying that. It doesn't mean the guy with the less sign ain't going to kill the biggest buck. I'm not saying that, because that happens. Sometimes the biggest bucks don't live with all the other deer. That's a whole new thing to talk about down the road. So I'm just saying is if you got numbers around you and good sign and it's fresh, and you're going to have better chance of hunting. That day your stand may not be in the right patch of woods to get good success. So you can't weigh all that out unless you're there and you can read each guy you'd have to go to each individual spot and say, well, this spot didn't produce grunting yesterday. Why? Well, you can't do that, but there's a reason. It might be. Now, part of that reason might be confidence and just not, you're calling more often than he is due to a confidence level. But part of it might be you're just in a better spot that particular day or that particular morning or afternoon where the deer are up on their feet and being somewhat aggressive where he's at, they're not, It's not common for one guy to come back to deer camp and say, I saw 13. Dang, I didn't see but one. I didn't see any. Well, it didn't mean that guy's a better hunter than you are. It's the fact that in his area, they were a little more mobile and a little more active, and there's more there to eat, whatever. But that's just kind of the gist of it. Mostly, though, I believe it really, for the most part, if everything was weighed out, it's confidence. And I expect my call to work. I expect it to work every time I blow it. And a lot of people don't. They're not expecting to say, I had it work one time, but it hasn't worked since. Okay. Well, me is like, I had to work a lot over the years. Oh, it's worked. It hadn't worked a lot over the years, but the good certainly overweighs the bad by far. And the main thing is if you look at it from a hunting or if you're one of the guys that you just go into the woods to enjoy nature, leave the call at home. You know, just go and sit, and maybe a buck will come by, maybe he won't. Enjoy the sunshine, the birds, and all that. I'm not one of those guys. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy hunting more than anybody. I go to kill something. That's why I go. Now, that'll be controversy for some of your listeners because I hear them all the time going, yeah, we didn't get anything, but I didn't go for that. I had a great time. I'm great. I'm okay with that. That's not why I go. And they said, well, you're going for the wrong reasons. No, if I go up to the plate, I'm playing baseball, I go up to the plate with a bat in my hand, I'm going up to the home run. I ain't going up to strike out. So I go to the woods or I go to the lake, I'm going to catch something or kill something. And if that isn't in my mind, I'm already at a disadvantage. And I see that with hunting across the board. Now, I'm old school, and my world is centered around my brain and my instincts, and that's how I approach it. Because if I go in the woods, and I'm not a 100% in kill mode, I'm already at disadvantage. Where now you have cameras and cell phone, you're going in the woods. Oh, he's at feeder number 5 right now. It's pretty easy to have confidence in, and I'm gonna go kill one or whatever. But you got to do it every day when you're hunting by instincts. You got to go in the woods every day with that in mind, that I'm going to fill a tag. I'm going to kill a buck. I'm going to kill 6 squirrels. That's my limit or whatever. That's what I'm going for. And if I fail, did I enjoy the day? Absolutely. Did I smell a flower or eat a blueberry or blackberry? Yep. Watch a hawk pick up a feather? Yep. I did all that. Enjoy the quiet time, no phone? Yep. But I come out with no limit. I didn't kill my deer. I didn't kill my buck. I didn't place my tag. I come from Colorado with no bull elk, and I got all that expense, and I've been gone. I didn't work hard enough. That's my fault. I didn't put in the time, the effort, the scouting. It's on me. And like I said, it's like going up to bat, saying, I'm going to go up and strike out. But I'm going to have fun doing it. I'm going to look good. My uniform's clean. Mom and Dad are rooting for me, and I'm having fun. But I struck out. I can't justify that. I really can't. And so I take hunting a little different than most. We go to, if you come to hunt with me and my camps or whatever over the years, it's like we go through everything. We're going to get in your mind. We're going to kill something. You got a turkey tag, we're going to kill a gobbler. Now, I ain't saying we always do it, but we go in the woods with that mindset that that's what we're here for. And if you want to play and have fun and hug each other and do all this good stuff, I'm okay with that. When we get back to camp, do all of you want. But we're here in the woods to kill that deer, kill that turkey, kill that elk, get that limit of squirrel, catch that limit of bass. It's a challenge. It may be wrong. I don't know. I'll never change, and nobody ever convinced me that you're going for the wrong reason. No, I'm going for my reason. I don't hunt for you. I don't hunt for the TV. I hunt for me. I'm going here because I love this, and it's a challenge. And I realize if I'm not on my game, I come home empty-handed. And so it's easy to say, oh, well, I didn't want to kill one anyway. It was such a beautiful day. Those are excuses. Some of those are in your head before you ever go. I don't like that,
I joke about this all the time, but it's kind of like the guy that always posts sunrise or sunset photos when he's deer hunting. That different mindset, what you're talking about. Yeah. Also, one thing I'm curious about, have you had more success, if you had to try to analyze it, grunting in bucks on morning hunts or evening, afternoon hunts?
I probably, thinking about it, I never really I shouldn't say that. For years, I kept notes every day for about 10 years. And then that was back in the 80s. And I kept daily notes of activities and weather, wind, everything. I did it religiously. And then one day I said, I'm done. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of writing this stuff down. I thought someday I'd break them out and go through them because there's a lot of good information there. But as a whole, I find that I have more success in the mornings as a whole. But I have more success probably killing big bucks of a morning as a whole. But I've killed enough big bucks and called enough big bucks in the evenings that I don't discard it. So I'll just say that, yeah, I've had a little better success in the mornings, but I have a little better success on deer in general in the mornings, especially later in the mornings, So I don't know. I don't know how you verify that or back it up, but that's just it.
I just selfishly, I'm the same way. So like that's why I was like, people can see on camera, but I was like fist bump. I was like, yes, I love a morning hunt, but also I don't think I haven't been doing it nearly as long as you have. Like I've only been taking grunting more seriously for probably 4 seasons.
Right.
Okay, so it's a fraction of what you've dealt with. But if for some reason it just seems like I have more confidence and I call in more bucks in the mornings than I ever do in the afternoons or evenings, no matter time of the season. And that's why I was curious with you as well. And I don't know if it's even outside the rut and even the pre-rut, it's just you're catching one in the right condition day. You're just catching a buck, getting back to his bedding area a little bit later. And for whatever reason, you're steering that buck kind of in your direction a little bit more to kind of check out on his way back to bed, or if he's going to go check a scrape, whatever. I just feel like I've had more success with that. That's why I was wanting to ask you.
Yeah, I think it's just natural. And I think if you talk to a lot of old timers, they're going to tell you they've had a little better luck in the mornings. And part of that is just the deer, the behavior and the deer are up on their feet, daylight, moving around, looking to get out. They're a little bit away from their home area and maybe even reluctantly, I'm not ready to go to bed yet. I'm not ready to move back in the timber yet. Or they smell something. Whereas in the evenings, it's generally, the sun isn't down far enough for me to get out of my bed yet. So you're spending a lot of time waiting for that last hour, half hour, 45, whatever it might be of the peak time. So it's probably got a lot more to do with the deer on their feet a little longer in the mornings than they are in the evenings across the board.
Well, it's funny because I want to bring this up. We just did an episode with Dr. Bronson Strickland from Mississippi State University, and they had a bunch of GPS collared bucks on some huntable population, big private land down in Mississippi, and the buck movement was higher generally in the mornings than it was in the afternoon. The peak activity in the afternoon wasn't until typically an hour after sunset, which you're back at the truck probably by that time.
Sure.
Versus in the morning, a lot of times it was right at daybreak or even an hour or two after daybreak was peak movement. So statistically, you're going to have a higher chance of that buck getting within hearing distance of you in a morning than it is in the afternoon.
And the other thing you got to add in there that is very critical is the rut. When you get closer to that word rut, that activity, pre, post, and peak, it just adds a little more to it, and it makes the evenings, gives you a little better shot in the evening because the rut will make them get on their feet a little bit earlier in the evening. So you're hunting, and it literally, I'm talking days, hours even. You can be hunting the same field on October 28th in central Missouri here, and you will see maybe that buck come and hit a scrape right at dark, or just you can't even see him. You can hear him scraping it. And literally by November 1st, that same buck is in that scrape at 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon because that rut, that urge has taken over and can happen overnight. So timing is very critical. And, I'm one of those guys, I scout a lot in early October, and I'm going to just say Missouri, but this could be anywhere in the country, but say Missouri. I'm a bow hunter. Season opens September 15th. If I happen to have a giant that I've patterned in coming to a bean field on September 15th, I might hunt him. Chances are I'm not hunting him. I mean, chances are I'm not seeing they're not patternable, or so if they are early, and if they ain't, okay? So, I'm scouting till literally October 28th in my mind is been set in my mind for 40 years. That's why I started getting serious, in Missouri. I start taking scrape hunting seriously because that's when the bucks that I'm after traditionally start getting on their feet and giving me better opportunities. Does that mean you can't kill one any other day in September to the 28th of October? No, doesn't mean that. I'm just saying, for me and the time I'm investing, I know my window starts about October 28th over scrapes and the right scrapes, and it gets better every day because that rut gets better every day. So my focus is on that October 28th to however long it takes to make it happen, because it gets better every day. So it's timing. And so it's not any different than grunting and calling. If you're out early season and the deer aren't moving, it's hot, there's no rut involved, you're calling, they're not going to be that advantageous. Is it going to hurt you? No. Can you call the biggest buck in the world, in the middle of October when it's hot? Yep, you could. I wouldn't put my money on it, but you could. And so if you're out there hunting, why not cast it out? You just never know. But when those times get better and those bucks get more active and things are happening, that's when I pick up my aggression. Not only the time I spend hunting a particular big buck, but how I approach him, how I hunt him, and the more aggressive I get because he's getting more aggressive. So it just kind of balances out.
Can you explain what is the right scrape versus the wrong scrape?
Again, I like to look for scrapes that are very well used by the opposite sex. If I got a lot of does hitting a particular scrape, that's the one I'm going to key in on. Because not only do I know that there's more does hitting this scrape, the bucks know it. And so I look for those very active community type scrapes versus a big rub and a scrape line. It's going to get my attention. A particular scrape is going to have a lot of activity. The more doe activity has, the more I'm going to want to hunt it. Because when he gets right and he starts searching, and they get right, and he starts searching and realize that he's going to be at that particular scrape. So you and before the trail cameras, you had to just read the sign. You had to see the different size tracks, the amount of tracks and direction and all that. And some of it was hard to do because the ground wouldn't even allow you to do that. So you had to visually and glass and do that. With cameras today, you can tell which one's the most active. Well, you're going to know which one the big bucks are on, so it takes a lot of the guesswork out of it, so you just, again, it's just guess and putting your best guess forward. And I want more activity around the scrapes that I want to hunt.
And being around those scrapes and hunting around those scrapes or on those scrapes is one of those high odd places that you have also success calling bucks to them.
Yeah, because it's an area that they're frequenting. Whether it's and the more you can get zoned in on where they're spending a lot of their time, the better your call's going to work because they're going to hear it more often. You're going to be around more deer. So, yeah, but it also is part of that scrape scene is certainly the rut scene, and it all goes back to. As the season progresses, as the rut progresses, so do their activity levels. It just starts peaking up. So if you're in the right general area because of the sign you're reading and they're progressing into their activity and getting, spending more and more time on their feet during daylight hours, it's much easier for you to connect, to make it happen. Much easier for that call to work, So it's just kind of putting the whole puzzle together.
Also, if you had to, I'm trying to think how I want to ask this. Would you say most of your calling success, grunt calling success, has been around areas that has an abundance of buck sign, scrapes, rubs, but also doe activity or food sources or bedding areas? Like, is there any specific kind of situation that you've had the most success calling in bucks?
I don't know if there's any situation that, because the way I hunt, the call is part of every hunt for me. And so, and I've seen it produce in all situations. I've grunted in deer in April. I've grunted bucks in April with, horns this tall, that big around this tall, that come to the call, So all I can do is lean back to the activity level. If you're in an active area, whether you're hunting, a buck that's more of a loner, staying more off the beaten path, away from the group, or whether you're hunting the bucks in that group, you know, if they're getting more aggressive and spending more time on their feet, you got a better chance of calling them. And the more deer you have around you, obviously, the better chance you got of calling a buck. But also, you got to lend to there's some bucks that don't tolerate a lot of deer, especially a lot of buck deer around them. These bucks are not, I don't know if you call them loners. They're not. They want the lady friends and they have their territory. And so there is a territorial reason for them to respond to a call. And they don't allow, there's not many bucks in the area because they'll run them off. You know, they'll beat them up and run them off. And it don't have to be a big buck or a giant antlered buck. It could be a spike. It could be a 4-year-old spike that is mean. And he just keeps all the deer run off. And he's vulnerable to a call because he's a bully. And it could be a giant, bighorn buck, 4.5, 5.5, 6.5-year-old with giant horns. But that's his area. He don't tolerate little bucks around. He's vulnerable to the call if you get inside his bedroom, inside his bubble, inside his safety zone. Many of them have a zone, and you don't know what that is exactly. But if another buck breaks that, whether it's 80 yards or 60 yards or a quarter mile, whatever it is, you break that bubble, he's coming. I found out with bull elk got crazy, you know. Big bull, and he's got his cows. He won't tolerate any bull that breaks that 50, 60 yard mark. If they break it, he can see him. He's bugling at them. But as soon as they break that imaginary line, he's on them. And when you can figure that out, you can kill him. You can figure that imaginary line. It's the same way with whitetails. You can get in, may not be the most deer in the country, but there's big buck sign. Or aggressive sign, whether it's big sign or just aggressive, a lot of sign from a particular deer. And he's vulnerable to a call because he's probably kind of not a bully, but more of a dominant acting buck. Doesn't mean he's the biggest antlered buck in the area. A lot of people get that confused. You know, I've seen spike bucks rule. Older spikes rule a field and run everything out of it. You know, so you never know what you're going to get into. Generally, you think maturity and aggression is all about big bucks and big antlers, but it's not always that. It's about age and their personal, you know, makeup. You know, so. But it's interesting because it can happen anywhere, and so I have confidence in the call regardless of where I set up.
Also, when you've talked about timing, you've talked about, of course, calling during the rut, and that's when a lot of people think you would have success. Have you had success out of late pre-rut, peak rut time frame calling and getting bucks to respond and getting bucks killed?
I've had success, and it gets. I mean, again, just goes back to I never go in the woods without the call, so I never know what situation I'm going to be in. I've had a lot of bucks during the rut be with those and just pay no attention to you. Absolutely. Oh, they'd look up. They'd have 2 or 3 does, wouldn't push them these does, and I'd grunt, and they'd look up. And they'd go back to dogging the does, and I'd grunt, and they'd look up again. They'd watch and make sure I wasn't coming, being a buck or whatever. So you're spitting in the wind. Didn't hurt me none. I didn't have a chance without the call, but the call didn't hurt me any. But I've had the reverse happen on much fewer occasions. But you know, I've had bucks be dogging 2 or 3 does. One was right here in the Ozarks, not just south of the house here. He was 145-inch, 10-point, and 3.5, 4.5-year-old deer. I wanted to shoot him. He came in. He was 100 yards away with 2 does. He's just dogging him. I blew the call. He throws his head up. I blew it again. He ran to me. I mean, I barely timed it. He left those does and run right to me, and I shot him. And it's like, wow, magic. But the next 10 times you do it, he looks up and he don't pay attention. He dogs his does off the other way. You say, well, that's what's going to happen. It will. But I also know the other one happens too. And that's what I live for. That's what I'm doing. And again, it goes back to what did I have to lose, you know? So yeah. And then I've seen late rut bucks that are exhausted, run down, rutted down, could almost care, you know, less about anything, just wanting to survive. But I've seen them come to the grunt. And what I have noticed is the late season bucks, I've seen much less, a much, how would I put that? More cautious approach, slow approach. Grunting to a mature buck. I filmed one in Iowa one time in December, and the rut was over, and this old guy was beat up. He's a big. Well, let me see. Well, you can't see him, so he's up here. He comes down just feeding on acorns late in the evening. I grunt at him. He'd look. He'd go back to eating acorns. And he'd eat. I grunt at him. He'd look. Go back to eating. I grunt. He'd take a few steps and just look and grunt. I'm sitting in a tree with a cameraman. There's nothing else I can do. Is he going to get to me before dark? I don't think so. And he could pass anywhere. He's coming down a ridge, but he is concentrating on eating acorns. He's hungry. He's rutted out. He could care less what was going on in his. But I kept grunting and kept grunting. He kept looking, but he'd go back. But he started getting just easing a little closer in his feeding, easing a little closer. I kept grunting. He gets like 45 yards out. It started out about 80 yards or so when he was feeding. I'm trying to get him. It's getting dark, you know. He gets like 45 yards out. I grunt again. Now, I'm telling you, this is probably the 40th grunt I've given this deer. The 40th. Most people won't grunt 40 times in a season, okay? This is probably the 40th grunt. My buddy Randy Markham filmed it, and he was just right on the camera. And at 40 yards or 45 yards, I finally grunt number 40, and he picks his head up and he just starts walks right to me. I shoot him at like 12 steps. I can't explain why. I don't know what changed his mind, why he was so reluctant. I just found that they're not in any hurry at that time. They're more thinking about. So you may not see the great response to the grunt late season, but it still is there. Be more patient. Expect them to be a little less fired up, but still can be coerced into making a change, changing their route, or come looking for you at their leisure. Because they're not in any hurry at that point.
Now, as much as you call, I'm sure you've heard bucks snort wheeze.
Yeah.
Have you ever implemented snort wheezing?
Lots.
Okay.
Yeah. It works well. I do it a lot with, as a last resort. I would much rather rely on the grunt by far above them, over the snort wheeze, but it has its place. And whenever the grunt fails me, especially on a mature buck, or you don't give me the shot I'm needing and I'm losing him for whatever reason, then I relent to the snort wheeze. It basically is last resort calls in. Yeah, I'm talking to you, stupid. I'm slapping you in the face because you're a sissy. That's what you're doing to him. So you're basically making that ditch effort of shaming him into, or making him get mad and take that step. And it works. It can help. It does happen. I'd much rather coax him in with a grunt because it has many reasons that you hear a grunt. It has many connotations where the snort wheeze is aggressive. It's calling you a sissy. It's time to throw down. You either throw down or you walk away. And so it's a last resort call from me. I occasionally would throw it in with a rattling sequence. I'm not sure how good it helped me or whatever, but there is a place for the snort wheeze, and it's certainly centered towards mature deer, the biggest deer in the area, or at least the baddest in your area. And there always is one, whether it's a 110-inch 8-point or whether it's a 180, there's always a dominant buck in your area, and he's the one that, he'll take on all challengers. So if you hit him with the snort wheeze, you might have a game on. It can happen.
I've heard more snort wheezes in the last 4 years or 3 years in Alabama than I've ever heard in Alabama. I've killed one snort wheezing. We've called in, actually we killed a couple snort wheezing and called in buck snort wheezing. And one time it was blind calling, but there was a hot doe in there. There were 7 bucks on this, or 5 bucks on this one hot doe. Couldn't get a shot. They kind of ran out of there, started snort wheezing, making all kinds of racket, and then another buck came through and ended up killing him. Actually, I think
Yeah, I killed him, and then
I
an
did
hour
again.
later we did it again, and he killed one.
Yeah.
We were sitting together. We doubled up.
But have you ever had a buck come in snort wheezing to your grunting? Or again, the way you're grunting typically isn't so
No,
aggressive.
I
that they're
don't
not
think
doing-
I could ever say I had a buck snort wheeze at my grunt that I can remember. I'm trying to think. I've heard a lot of snort wheezing. Generally, they've got to see the deer. You know, they want to make that visual contact and see what they're up against. But the snort wheeze is like it's like anything else, you know. It's just a challenge. It's a different type of challenge, you know. I do believe the snort wheeze is more in tune to scaring younger deer. So if your target deer is not the mature deer, you got a better chance, in my opinion, putting him on a red alert by putting that kind of challenge on him, you know. Whereas with the grunt or even rattling doesn't really do that, you know. Rattling is like two kids yelling, you know, kids yelling fight on the playground. Everybody wants to come see it. And you generally got to go see the size of the deer. And I do believe in big antlers and lots of noise when I'm rattling, but I don't see it spooking the deer. It's kind of like the grunt. I don't see it spooking deer as much as I would see the snort wheeze having that effect.
No, I'm glad to cover that. Also, I do just want to touch on your rattling style, how you like to rattle, how often you like to rattle, and so on. So could you walk us through that?
Yeah, I've got some horns hanging right there by you. If you see them, you know that I use big antlers. I try to use heavy antlers, and I like to make noise. You know, I'm a noise maker. Okay, I used to rattle with the little antlers, and because they were more, well, it's all I could kill back in the day, and they were much more compact to carry, and on and on and on. And then I got to realizing, you know, later on that I need to make more noise. I need to reach out for it. I need something that makes more. So, you know, the cracking of the antlers was big. So I started carrying bigger, heavier, crisper antlers with me. And yeah, I'll take antlers. I'll be rattling with antlers much bigger than a lot of the bucks in the area I'm trying to kill. As a whole. So you're thinking, man, you cracked them together. He's like, I ain't going over there. Well, I haven't seen that. I've seen that. If they can hear it and they know it's a fight, I see both boys and the girls coming to it, you know. So I try to make noise, a lot of rattling. I do. I don't know. I don't time it or anything, but I want to make a lot of noise, get their attention, and I want to just continue to coax them in as if, and you got to put it in your mind, one's coming. You can't see it, but you got to think in your mind, pretend, hey, I know one's coming. And I'm rattling, and now he's coming, and now he stopped. He's looking, okay, I'm going to rattle again. I just try to play those games in my mind of what I'm trying to make happen. And so I rattle accordingly. But I generally, my sequences are from a tree stand, generally. I mean, if I go out rattling on the ground, going, moving, calling, and my intention is to rattle, well, I just move from place to place, give 2 or 3 short sequences, look, and then I get up and move again. And I rely on covering distance to eventually put me in the realm of one that'll come. But from a tree stand, it's like grunting. It's like once in a while I feel like rattling. I want to shake things up. I rattle from a stand, but I always throw that grunt in too. I keep that grunt call handy because if I get him coming to the rattling, and I need to put my antlers down because he's getting, but that call is still there to keep him coming, keep him from stopping and instincts taking over and say, I need to go downwind. I need to find that wind. So it's not rocket science. It certainly isn't.
Rattling is something that I've had a lot more luck with than grunting. Mm-hmm. So I want to talk a lot about this. Can I give you a pair of these antlers and have you?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, it's.
I guess I want to ask him about
a lot of your buck doe ratios and how many bucks you got in the area and the age structure has a lot to do with how often and how quick they come.
Those real big ones down there.
I mean, these look pretty big. Are these good or they're better?
Those are good. Yeah, those are good.
I'm looking at the bases of these other ones. Daggone.
Yeah. You know, I like bigger antlers because they make more noise and they're not fun to carry. They do take up some room, and that's why there's rattle boxes and things that work. You know, they do work. Problem is, I just don't get at least the feel that I get out of, say, antlers. But I like certainly a lot of room in those antlers. But you got to make a lot of noise, and you rattle it to the conditions just like you call to the conditions. You know, if it's a really windy day and you're in tight cover, you better make some noise. And if you're calling or trying to rattle long distance, you better make some noise. You know, real calm morning and you're in a tight spot, you maybe just want to tickle your antlers a little bit. That's carrying a long ways on the right day. You don't need a lot, and it's not rocket science. But that's more of a curiosity thing. Deer will come to rattles pretty much year round. I mean, they will. They're curious. They come to just be out of curiosity. I've rattled in mule deer, you know. Curiosity in September. You shake them on, here they come looking. You know, it's like, what's going on over there? Two guys, you know. So anytime the velvet is hardened, it's a good time, you know, to try rattling. But it's like grunting or anything else. The more they get fired up because of that rut, the meaner they get or the bolder they get, and the more opportunities you have. So I find myself rattling sparingly early in the season and not real aggressive. It's like two bucks come out in the field. They're not mad at each other. They both shed their velvet, and they go up and they look at each other and they lock up and they just play. And all it is telling other bucks that, hey, there's a little sparring over here. They come. They're curious. It can work for you in September. You know, anytime the antlers are hardened. But like with my grunting, I get more aggressive and louder as I get into that season, especially as I get into the post rut and late rut, and then early post rut, when they're kind of in between and they're frustrated, and I even get more aggressive then. But I like to, when I get aggressive, I like to certainly have initial clash of antlers to reach out there. I don't need to beat them all. I mean, I don't need to do all this wild, crazy stuff. And a lot of pausing, you know. You watch deer, they'll fight. I've seen videos, they'll fight for, 30, 40 seconds, 50 seconds hard, and then it's over. Well, that'll work, I guess, and it's natural to a degree, but most fights I see are locking up and pushing, and then more locking up, and then pushing, and then more shaking of the head, and then separate, and they look at each other, size each other up, come back again. I might make 3 or 4 or 5 sequences like that, but the key is you gotta be watching. You can't be cracking your fingers together, busting your knuckles, saying bad words because that hurt like crazy. When you crack them together from the very first sound, you've made that call. You've made that cast. You've invited one to come. And what happened to get it all in tune? Am I sounding right? Am I doing this right? Did I do it like the book said? You better be going and watching everything around you, because, man, I mean, it can happen super fast, and they can be on you in a heartbeat. Or anytime through your sequence, or anytime 10, 15 minutes after your sequence. So you hang your horns up, I hang them on a bow hanger, you better be paying attention for a while, because you made a sound, and that buck may be coming from a half a mile away. And he may be taking his time, but he's coming. So you got to be alert, because he might be 15 minutes later, and you say, well, I rattled, I didn't see him, but 10 minutes later I shot a nice buck. Well, probably a good chance he was coming to the horns. Some come fast, some come slow, some come out of curiosity, some come mad. You just don't know until you can see them. So there's not a lot of technique there. I mean, a lot of guys will get on the ground and flop around like a dead fish and kick leaves and break limbs, and I mean, it works. You add some I don't do that, so I let the horns reach out, and then follow it up with a grunt. It gets kind of quiet after I rattle. Throw a couple little grunts out there. Yeah, we're here. We're over here. It's just kind of playing the game, and it all works.
Now, you did mention something earlier before we get to those antlers, that there's sometimes you're on the ground and you will call from different locations and move. Walk us through that, because you really got my attention with that.
Oh, if days that are prime, I know things are right. Again, I'm just going to say from hearing this this world of Missouri. I mean, from November 10th through the 20th, even in Kansas that time, in southeast Kansas, boy, that's when the bucks are really on their feet and moving, and they're vulnerable. And there's days when the wind's just right, and I mean, I just go from one hunting hole to the next. And I walk in and set up and rattle. I walk into just like locating a turkey. You park your truck, you walk over to the edge of the ridge so you can call down that holler. That's what I do rattling. And I spend all day doing it. My buddies out west, that's pretty much all how they hunt. When bucks get active, of course, they got a bazillion miles to drive and get out and rattle. Over what we have generally here in the East. You know, we might have a 300 or 400 acre farm, or you might be hunting in the Ozarks or whatever, but the conditions are right. The wind is right for me. I like a little wind, a little movement. I don't like the dead still days, but I'll still rattle on any day. But I like a little wind. I got a good steady wind, not a shifting wind and all that. And there's just days when these bucks are active. I will just go from one hunting. I might hunt 4 or 5 different farms, or I might cover 8 or 10 miles in the national forest, just going to the ridge and rattling, getting the wind right and rattling, setting up, cracking the horns together, and giving them that 10, 15 minutes and off to the next one, you know.
So I want to get even more into that. Are you doing that bow hunting or gun hunting, or
Both?
Both. Okay. Okay. How are you setting up on the ground? Like, once you go into a spot, you're calling, you think it's a good setup, you're not climbing a tree, I'm guessing.
No.
You're staying on the ground. So what do you just like tug up to a tree or blow down? What do you do?
If you got a tree stand in the area, I mean, I know guys that go, they got several stands. They go climb up their stand, rattle, and get down and go to the next one. That works. I'm usually on the ground. I just I like turkey hunting. I find me something, break up my outline from my back. I generally don't hide. I have a backdrop. Just make it happen. You know, I'm not looking, I don't hide, you know, I hunt them like I do turkey, except I shoot off my knees instead of off my butt, you know. So when I set up for deer with my bow, I'm on my knees backed up against a big tree, and it can happen. It happens and happens and happens. If you like to hunt, if you're a mobile hunter, you want to try some new spots, and you know things are really going, the bucks are real active, and you want to hit some spots, and it's a great way to slip, and it works. This is not something I got to be out at daylight. I mean, these are hunts that I can do 10, 11, 12, 1, 2 o'clock, when I can sneak into where I think a buck's bedding area is, and he's in the right frame of mind. He's just resting, but you get in close, you crack them horns together. I've had them bounce out of that bed and run to you.
Can you tell us a story? Because I'm really interested in this. Do you have a story of one of these hunts like that?
Yeah, I mean, for instance, I was up here in the we call them strip pits. They're old coal mining pits, and they're long strip, and the dirt's been piled up. Mother Nature's taken them over. They're rough. You can't hardly walk through them, and they're nasty and they're thick. But you get, you know, obviously reading sign, and the time you scout in there, you find bigger bucks bedding areas, and you know where they're spending most of their time, and it's in those almost impenetrable type of conditions. It's just rough in there, and to sneak in there and try to set up a stand, it's just tough. And so those areas several areas we would earmark. A friend of mine that I hunted with up there, Tom Stevens, and he's the one that really got me going on those pit, is, you know, hey, just give him time. You know he's living there. Give it time. When he gets right, slip in there and get him while he's in his bed. And he did it many times, and it got me thinking about it. Obviously, in the strip pits, it's like when he comes, if you see him, he's going to be 20 yards or less, and he's probably going to come at you. You know, he's going to come and try to see you. And so I remember slipping into those areas, knowing that there's a big buck living here. I know he's in here. And so that morning I went in, had the wind perfect, coming in a direction I could get to him, alerting that deer. There's a 145, 50-inch buck in there. And, you know, again, you're hunting blind per se, but you know he's there. You know he's living right there. So I expected something to happen. And it's just typical of the Kansas deer that you hear him coming before you see him a long ways. I mean, I can hear this buck running long before I'd ever see him because it's so thick in there. And he was breaking his neck to get to you. It's like 13 steps he gets in shooting distance. So it's a no-brainer. You know, you make the shot. You didn't do anything special. You did watch the wind. You did know the buck was there because of your previous scouting and saw him that he left, whatever. You knew he lived in that general area, but you waited for, number one, timing to be right. They got to be aggressive. They got to be in there in at least the peak, or if not, close to the end of the peak of the rut, maybe very early post-rut. That's when they're, you know, most irritable and generally still aggressive. And you slip into those areas and let the horns do the work for you. You know, it's kind of, they won't tolerate you. You can rattle a mile away from him. He might hear it. He ain't coming out of there. You know, he's just not coming out of there. He's not trained to do that. He knows he's safe. But when you break into that bedding realm or his comfort zone and you crack the horns together, it's a whole different deal. You know, he can't take it. See, it's a great way to hunt. I have done it with a rifle, especially out in western states. It's not too healthy to do it with a rifle in Missouri. It's, number one, you can't see it. There's way too many rifle hunters, so it gets kind of dangerous in that regard. So, but it's very effective, and it's again not rocket science. You use common sense and trying to make things happen.
Now, I know you're an elk hunter, and you got a bunch of elk on the wall over here that people can't see currently, but is there a similarity when that buck comes? I mean, he's not bugling or anything, but when he comes, you hear him come running in and you're on a ground set. Does it kind of give you a flashback to some elk hunting?
Oh, when you hear him running and you know you've hooked. I mean, you're hooked up. It's an adrenaline rush. It's as big adrenaline rush as a big gobbler coming, gobbling in full strut, looking at you. It's that rush. You fooled him. He's coming, and you don't even know how big he is yet. You don't really care. It's like I've fooled this guy, and so it's a rush, and it's a feeling of accomplishment. Does it compare to a bull elk running into me, screaming with snot flying out his nostrils? And no, that's a little different elevation. It's still the deer's still pretty dang exciting, though. I mean, the elk are just generally they're just so vocal that you not only get to hear the noise coming, but you get to hear the scream and the intensity and the response and from his own vocalization that take that to a different level for me.
Now, being a bow hunter for as long as you have been, you've had to have some experiences where no matter what you've done, a big buck, maybe a giant buck, got away. Everybody's got a story like that. Do you have one like that still haunts you to this day, or something you've thought about?
Just many. I had one that haunts me to this day the most. Was a deer in Illinois, and I didn't call this deer. I didn't do anything. I just found the sign. I was the first year I ever bow hunted Illinois, way back in the day. And I put up a stand and sat and waited and listened as it was late October, mid to late October. But the sign was incredible. The sign, right before dark, I heard a deer, heard a little branch or whatever, and there was a little brush line to my left, and out stepped a 200-inch whitetail. I have seen one 200-inch whitetail in the wild in my life, and that was him. And he's 42 yards. And it's really weird because the reason it sticks in my mind is because I immediately went into panic mode and immediately got nervous and immediately recognized a world-class deer at the time. And all that just hit me at once, and I am like, now I'm on fire. I mean, every nerve in my body is and he's standing there, and it's like he's looking. And then I get this by watching. I realize that he senses something's wrong. Wind's good, wind's blowing from him to me, but he just has this sense about him, and he's looking, and he's looking, and he's looking my way in a general direction, and you can tell he's cautious. He wasn't coming no farther. Could I have killed him? He gave me broadside shots at 42 yards. I could have killed him, maybe. I mean, I think I could have made, over the years, I thought of it, you could have made that shot. I was hunting with a compound then, and I was shooting, practicing 40 yards but all my deer, most all the deer I ever killed was 15, 18, 20, 25 yards. 40 was pushing it back then for me. And I couldn't make myself shoot at him. I could not make myself draw the bow. And I went to kill something. I mean, I wasn't, but I don't know why I didn't feel right about it. It was wide open. He stepped out of the brush line. And I let that happen, let that go, he just melted back into that where he come from. Never seen him again. I hunted him several days. Never saw him again. Never saw any fresh sign of him again. I just educated a highly educated buck, educated him a little more. But it also was the first time that I realized that bucks have a sixth sense. Animals have a sixth sense. Humans have a sixth sense. Some of them just don't use it. Some of them do. Some of them survive by it. Some humans survive by it. And some, certainly animals survive. But he sensed I was there. He didn't smell me. He didn't hear me. He just knew something was not right. He could feel it and drifted back in. So that's just one long story, but that deer stepping out has burned in my mind forever.
Brad, we were talking a little bit before we got started about that sixth sense, and you had some really interesting stories and thoughts on that. Can you go through that sixth sense with us?
Well, I think everybody has good senses. I think every human's created the same. We all have, we're all able to feel things and whatever, but I think animal world as well as in human world, some people have developed those senses above and beyond. Some animals have developed those senses above and beyond for various reasons. A lot of, for humans, is just the fact that do you ever really allow it to grow? I mean, it's not something, it's something you got to apply. You got to realize that you got it, but you got to apply it, and it's hard to say how you do that. But I try to go in the woods with an open mind, and I try to feel as much as I hear, see, or smell. And that's hard to do. But the more you hunt, the more, and people say, well, I had a hunch. Okay, you might have had a hunch, but that might have been your sixth sense kicking in, giving you, you need to take notice. Something's not right. Something's dangerous. Or maybe, hey, you get a hunch, somebody say, well, why did you sit in that tree versus, I don't know. I was pulled to that one. I was pulled to that spot. It's because you allowed your senses to take over. And you're not sitting there so much, maybe weighing out every option. You're just allowing your senses to say, go there. Why did you stop and call here? I don't know. I just, you're in a whole world out west and you're calling for turkey. Why'd you stop here? Well, it looked good, felt good. Well, it ended up being good sometimes, Animal world the same way. People say, well, these deer get smarter and wiser and whatever they do. Why do certain deer live longer than others? How come some deer in the Ozarks, a few, will live and die of old age? It'd be very few because of the hunting pressure, but some do. How do they manage it? Well, part of it is they have an incredible sense about them. They're able to not only see danger, hear danger, smell danger, they can feel danger. And I've watched animals over the years for no reason whatsoever, just like that buck story has told you, disappear because they just felt something wasn't right. Humans have that instinct. I watched African trackers out in Africa. You could tell they were good. They practiced. They lived that life. But their instincts were so much sharper because that's what their life depended on, is their instincts, being able to pick up on things that they could not only see and smell, but they could feel and get hunches, and they go by them. Those are sharpened if you spent your entire life tracking dangerous game in Africa, you better be good at it or you're going to be dead. And being good is one thing, but having instincts that get you around. I have good friends that served in Vietnam, and one of my good friends is Gary Clancy, an outdoor rider. He's a Vietnam veteran and a great guy. I love the man to death. He passed away several years ago now. We spent a lot of time hunting together, and I'm not one to try to dig up old bones, but I found that Gary was a Vietnam vet. I asked him a few questions and try not to bring up bad things, but from a hunting standpoint, I said, Gary, what does it take to survive that kind of thing? And he would tell me, he said, Brad, I walked point, volunteered to walk point for 12 to 13 months I was there. I said, why would you do that? He said, because the soldiers I was serving with in my platoon, great men, great brave soldiers, well-trained, whatever. Great, but he said none of them had ever been in the jungle, never been in. He said none of them ever hunted. He said we had guys from Chicago and New York and other big cities that never spent time in the woods other than during their training. He said, but, there was guys that grew up hunting and chasing deer and turkey and elk, and those guys had developed certain senses that the city guy never had a chance to. He just never was put into that. He said, so I felt like I had a better chance of detecting issues than some of those guys had. He said, because a lot of times, right before an ambush, he said, I would get the feeling something ain't right. He said, yeah, there'd be the monkey squealing or whatever, and certain things that give away, birds flushing or making sounds they don't, and they give away, something ain't right. But he said, sometimes it was just a feeling. Sometimes you could just feel their presence. And that's when I would stop. And he said, it's because he said, I developed some of those things in the world hunting game all my life. And he said it paid off for me when I was walking point in Vietnam. So it's not something in there. It's not a fairy tale. It's just, we live in a world now as hunters that we got the toys. You have to read signs, just put a camera up, you don't have to, you can fly a drone over and study a property and Onyx maps on your phone. And, we just have made it so much easier on ourselves that we're not subjecting us or having to, say, walk the territory, read the aerial sign, determine what's going on, because we have a lot of aids that help us. And so we're losing a lot of that natural instincts that we might have once had. We all have it, but just never get to exploit or grow it and see it, transform. So that's a big, wide open deal that a lot of people will laugh and say, "Oh, he's full of crap," because you can't prove it. If you live it and you felt it, and I have over the years, felt like I've myself. Certain things have told me to do this, do that, without being told, just by feeling, by instinct. I always tell people, hunt by the seat of your pants. If you're experienced and you're a decent woodsman, if you'll just hunt by the seat of your pants, don't make all those super calculated decisions. It's some of those quick decisions that you don't even know why, but those are the ones that pay off, or those might be the ones that save your life. I can tell, like hunting grizzly bear country in Idaho. There was days I could feel them. I mean, there was just something about the what was going on. It was something about the air, something that you learn to take slower steps and be more cautious, or you learn to switch from elk mode to bear mode. Something told you to do that. So. I know there's a lot to it. I wish I had mine sharpened way more than they are. I wish mine were sharpened like the African trackers that I dealt with. They're not anywhere close to that. And I'm always working to try and make it even better. So there's a lot of fairy tale stuff that kind of goes on out there when I'm hunting, and a lot of other guys that are older especially try to rely on, or certainly seen the benefits of it and felt some of the presence of it. And it's a real deal. Animals have it. Certain bucks have it. They're not curious. They're not a social animal. Some of them aren't. They don't care about being, and then they have that sense that they can feel danger. and they can move away from it. So they live longer, even in tough conditions in hard pressured areas.
So if you're going to develop that, it's not something you can be taught. It's not something you can buy. You just have to go do it yourself. You got to go in the woods, put the phone down, maybe leave the technology, and just kind of focus on developing it.
Yeah, how do you explain that? It's a mental thing that you go in the woods and you try to, I don't even know how to say it, but I try to just absorb the sights and sounds and try to feel the sights and sounds, which makes no sense. You can't explain it, but it is. It's just the amount of time you take that the more you're into it, the more you're open your mind to it, the more little tidbits of instincts grow. I mean, and that's why a lot of guys that survived war and battles, they had great instincts. They reacted quickly. They felt they knew what to do without calculating. Because how do you calculate, certain things you can't see, hear, or smell? It's feeling it. It's feeling it in your body, sense it in your brain, and responding to it. Yeah, the only way to make yourself, the only way to grow that is be open-minded that it's real, because it is real. Because you have people say, I don't know why I did that. I don't know why I made that call. I don't know why I went there. I have no idea what I did that for. But, well, think about it. There's something told you to do it. You felt the need to do it. And so you can grow it. It just takes a lot of time and a lot of experience outdoors. And like you said, get rid of the distractions, you can't have any distractions or you'll not be able to grow anything.
Got anything else on that?
Not on that. I'm just looking around at all your bucks here. Do you have one buck that you have mounted here? Maybe it's because of the store or whatever, but just means maybe the most to you, or is this very meaningful based off the hunt and the deer?
Probably not mounted. I mean, some of the most meaningful ones were some of the earlier bucks that, my gosh, you see them up there. There's antlers everywhere. That I didn't mount, neither because they weren't very big or I couldn't afford it. A little of both. So there's some hanging on the wall up there that, my goodness, when I shot them, it was like, holy mackerel, look what I just did, little 6-point basket rat coming out of the Ozarks. I mean, he's this big, and yet I had a heart attack till I got him on the ground, and they probably mean as much to me as a lot of the big deer do. The difference in some of the bigger deer is once I start targeting more mature deer, bigger deer, whatever, it was more of a, the being happy at the end result was great, and I was, but I was more happy with what led up to that, some of the steps that led up to, how'd you figure him out? What did you do to confuse him? What did you do to make him come running to you? And so those things are still embedded in my heart, but not having one that particularly stands out any. So the bigger, it doesn't matter. Even the little bucks have great memories to me of every hunt that I ever been on. Now I have one. The only buck I have mounted in my home is there, and he was my first Pope and Young buck. And I shot him in like 81, I believe. He's 138-inch 8-point, and killed him in Illinois. And I knew that he was a Pope and Young record book buck. And that was, so I immediately had him mounted. I couldn't afford to have him mounted in the 80s anyway, but I did because he's a Pope and Young buck. And I entered him into Pope and Young, proud of it. And that's the only deer I've ever entered. The only animal I've ever entered in the books. I entered him, and then after it was all said and done, I realized, I didn't really honor that deer at all and what it meant to me. 138-inch deer back in 1980, 81, I had people driving for miles and miles around to come and see him. He was a giant at that time. That's how far we've come. Now 138-inch deer don't even, even get your attention for not most, but quite a few hunters don't even lift their eyebrows. If they'd have been around in the 80s, early 80s, late 70s, it's a whole different world. It was a whole different world. Killing a mature buck back then was unreal. So we live in a great time. The last 25 years have been phenomenal for big whitetail, wild turkey, bull elk, on and on. We've lived in a great time, been blessed. So they all mean a lot to me. Every one, I can sit back and look at them, and it takes me a while on some of them, but the memories start coming back, where I was at and what I was doing and how that happened.
One last thing I just want to touch on. I know we're running long, but I do want to touch on this. Is your growing up, your connection to the land, the outdoors, hunting, that was a lot of it seemed to be around small game.
Yeah.
What does small game, especially squirrel hunting, mean to you? Because that's something that a lot of people don't talk about anymore. There are a lot of people that just don't even do it or don't even raise their kids doing it anymore. Now they just jump straight to deer hunting.
Deer, yeah.
What does small game, especially squirrel hunting, mean?
Small game made me a hunter over anything else. Everything else, you get into it after you become a hunter. Everything else becomes much easier because you got the hunting part down and the sports woodsmanship down from the small game. So everything else is just going and taking what you've learned and adding that information to that particular animal, and you become a good elk hunter, a good turkey hunter, a good deer hunter, whatever. But small game offered me a lot of opportunities to match my skills against the wild animal, and from a very early age because they were plentiful. And I love rabbit hunting and run beagles, but the beagles did all the work, okay? But I raised beagles. I love to hunt rabbits and kill rabbits over beagles. But the squirrel was the one that taught me the lessons. Number one, they were plentiful. Number two, it didn't take a lot of firepower. In other words, you didn't have to buy an expensive gun or expensive shells to do it. And so back in the day, that was plus, because I can remember Dad giving me like 3 shells to go hunting. But the squirrel was readily available. You could find them. And then the more you hunted them, the more you realize how tough they were to kill. Now, when you talk squirrel hunting today, you got all these people, including hunters, that say, oh, squirrel, I got 10 in my backyard. Well, good God, yeah. It's like shooting songbirds, okay? It's like shooting deer over a feeder. Yeah, you got them over a feeder. What hunt is that? Just go shoot them. Okay, you don't have to, it's I know I make people mad, but it's true. And the squirrel the same way. If you got them eating your backyard feeder, there ain't much to kill them. My grandson could kill them. My grandmother could kill them. It's going out and hunt them on their terms. Go out in anywhere there's squirrels, but go out in the Ozarks with a .22 rifle, a scope, and go kill me a mess of squirrels. 6 squirrels. I think the limit's 7 or 8 now. I don't know, 10 maybe. I go for 6 squirrels. Has been in my mind forever in my lifetime. You kill 6, that's your limit. It is that today. And you go out and you kill 6 squirrels. You say, well, that wouldn't be hard in the back. No, it wouldn't be hard in the backyard. Go try it in the woods. Go try on real wild squirrels. And do it consistently. Come in with a bag limit consistently. And then add a little more to that. Shoot them all in the head. Make headshots with your .22. Oh my, it gets tough. But when you get that mindset and you realize, number one, the squirrel is an amazing little critter. He eats good. I love eating them. But they're sharp. They got good eyes. They got good senses. And they're quick. And when you go into their world, they're hard to see, especially in timbered Ozarks. Man, I mean, you're looking up and it's canopy, okay? And you got a little squirrel run. You got to find him, You got to find him in 1,000 acres of the Ozarks or whatever. So hunting them sharpens every skill in your body. It sharpens your stealth. In other words, you got to learn to sneak on forest, leaf-covered, debris-covered forest floors. When it's dry, you better learn to sneak because them squirrels aren't stupid. They'll hear you, and they'll lay down flat, and you can't see them. And you got to sharpen your ears because a lot of squirrels you find, you hear them. Or you either hear them make a bark or a noise, but you hear a leaf fall. Or you hear a little raindrop fall when they bounce from one limb to another. You sharpen your hearing. You're always using your eyes, so you sharpen your eyesight because you're looking for a little bitty squirrel in a mass of trees and you're trying to find him. And when you get to the trees, then it might take 30 minutes to locate him. Find him. So you're sharpening your eyesight. All your skills are sharpened. And even your senses, because when you're standing there waiting and listening, trying to filter things through your ears, through your eyes, wow, I mean, it's building inside. They are the best teacher in the world, and nobody does it. Everybody laughs about it. You show me a good squirrel hunter. Now, I'm a little particular who I call a good squirrel hunter, but you show me somebody that can go into the woods, kill a limit of squirrels on a very consistent basis, whether it's May, whether it's late June, August in the hickory, whatever. He consistently brings about, he's a hunter. A real hunter. Very few people can do it. They'll all say, well, I can do it in my backyard or over daddy's feeder or where the cows eat. Yeah, so can my mother-in-law, So can she. Not when you go hunting wild squirrels. You want to learn to hunt? Go take up squirrel hunting and do it. I do it. I always do it every year before I go elk hunting. I do it every year anyway. But before I go elk hunting, I make sure I spend some time in August. Hunting squirrels is my favorite time of year when they're cutting hickories. And you get in and you hunt. Because by August, I haven't turkey hunted much. I haven't done a little bit of squirrel hunting, but I'm losing my senses. And elk's coming, and elk's the most important thing in my life when it comes to hunting. So I get in the woods and squirrel hunt several days prior to going to the mountains. It sharpens up my ears, my eyes, my eyesight. Makes me less clumsy. I've sharpened up my stealth, my stalking skills, sharpened my eye for shooting. Just a few little squirrel hunts before I take on the biggest hunt of my life, or biggest enjoyment of my hunting career, and that's hunting bull elk in the mountains. Because you may only get one chance at them if you're lucky, and you better make it happen. Because it's not easy to hunt. So,
Of the handful of good squirrel hunters that we know, if they're a really good squirrel hunter, they're always a really good woodsman, and they're a really good deer hunter.
yeah.
Like, it all kind of falls along with, like, taking squirrel hunting very, very seriously, like what you're talking about. Because, like you're saying, a lot of people joke about it.
Oh, it's a joke.
Ain't no
Absolute
challenge.
Joke. No challenge. I can post a squirrel picture on my Facebook page, and I'll get 20, 30 people, yeah, 6 bushy tails. Great. I got in my backyard. They don't realize the lessons.
Or deer hunters or deer hunters who don't squirrel hunt or didn't grow up squirrel hunting. Oh, they'll say, well, I see them all the time from my tree stand. There'd be nothing to kill them.
Yeah.
It's different when you're out there slip hunting for them. Again, no dogs, nothing like that.
Yeah.
Slip hunt with a 22.
Yeah, it's a different sport when you're going out after them on a consistent basis. And even guys say, well, I'll shoot 6 of them out of my deer stand. Well, you do it again tomorrow from your deer stand. Ain't gonna happen. Now go kill them. We live in a world that technology and we're humans. Human nature is make it easy, quicker, faster. My dad, you learned to squirrel hunt and rabbit hunt before you ever got a chance to go deer hunting. Never got a chance to put a deer rifle in your hand because you had to learn. And he knew the small game and going at it and even kicking up rabbits without the dog, you learned to work and to hustle and to try to make things happen. And the squirrels gave you all those built-in things that help you when you're big game hunting. And you learn first. You learn that woodsmanship. And I wish more kids did that today. They're not going to. It'll never happen again. We've made it too easy. It's just a matter, hey, I can afford a camera. I got a cell phone. I got a bucket of corn. I got a feeder. I got a blind. I'm set. That's where hunting is going. That's where it's gone. That's where it's going to be. It's not going to change. It's scary. It's sad. I hate it. Not from a standpoint, I don't mind. I have no problem with guys hunting that way. I just feel bad that you'll never convince them, but they'll never learn what true woodsmanship and outdoors is all about. Because without the corn pile, without the cameras, they're lost, But that's the way things are, and that's the way they're going to be, and we will not change them. I don't have to like it. I don't belittle anybody for doing it. I'm just, you're missing out. You've missed out on a whole lot.
You got any input on squirrels?
I
Small
mean,
game? Let's just make sure we don't run out of SD card.
yeah, I'm trying to make sure we don't run out of space because we're running.
Oh,
pretty
okay.
thin. Yeah. You
got 5
take
minutes?
it. No, you take it. We're good.
All right, cool. Well, Brad, I've got a ton of other questions, but again, like anything, we're running short on time, so we'll have to maybe try to do it again. Come back up here and meet with you. It'd be fun to go on a little squirrel hunt with you right before you go on an elk hunt. That's
Well, come up, guy. In August, early August, I start killing squirrels over here. That's my favorite time. I mean, they're out there they're cutting those nuts and they're dropping on the ground. I can hear them. I can find them. And I can sneak up on them and get me a limit shot. It's just a great time to be out. And it's sharpen those skills before you get ready to go hunting.
last question I have to kind of put a bow tie around everything. For listeners and viewers out there that are wanting to become better woodsmen, most of them are probably going to be deer hunters. Listen to the conversation, of course. But what would you tell them to focus on going into this season and for years to come to try to become a better woodsman and learn more woodsmanship skills in the field?
Well, you got to spend as much time as you can in the field without getting divorced or losing your girlfriend or whatever. And there's some truth to that. A lot of guys just can't get away, and they're spread thin. They like to fish a little, and they like to golf a little, and you got to go. I don't play golf. I don't play tennis. I hunt and I fish. I try not to let the two interfere with one another, although I do combine a few hunting and fishing excursions, especially in the spring. And even in the fall. I mean, I elk hunt. I'll take a sabbatical. The elk are kicking my tail, and I'll go, catch me a limit of little trout out of one of their native streams. And but I try to keep it separate. And hunting is certainly takes precedence over my fishing. Although I love to fish crappie and bluegill and catfish. I used to be a big bass fisherman, smallmouth fisherman. Nope. It's panfish, crappie. I'm into that and the catfish side. But you got to put time in it. And some people just can't. Now, I understand that. And their jobs, their kids, they're at every sporting event. Their wives don't like it, or their boyfriend, if it's a lady hunter, he don't like it. They're up against it, so I understand it. But spend as much time as you can without causing you problems. But don't overlook the gift, the easy stuff. We always, like you said a while ago, we start kids out on killing turkey and deer. And problem is, we put them in the best spots, the best blind. We might have the feeder and the cameras going, and it's a guaranteed thing. Trust me, without learning nothing. It's great. I'm glad you're doing it, sharing time with your kids, but they're not learning nothing. They're going out and killing something, coming back to the house, take pictures, They haven't learned about the woods. They haven't learned about what life can teach you, about working hard and obtaining a goal, matching wits with wild animals in their habitat. That fly better get out of here. So I encourage them to do as much as you can. Don't overlook the small game aspect, because it's the best teacher in the world. It's not expensive. It's available to most of us, even on public lands. It will teach you. You will be humbled until you learn, because they will humble you. And but if you're into it, that'll just make you hungrier and make you want to get better and better. So that's it. Take advantage of it as much as you can.
Perfect. Well, Brad, thank you so much for letting us come up here and do this interview with you. It's been an absolute blast. It's been fun to talk to you. First thing I really like about you, I love your energy. Listen, I like it. You're on top of it. And it also, it's just cool to sit down with someone that has as much experience hunting, not just deer, but everything. Again, if y'all watching YouTube, cutting some of the footage from Brad's trophy building. It's not a room, it's a building here. It's insane, but it's awesome that, again, everything kind of reverts back to, again, squirrel hunting. Your passion for small game, skill sets you learn there that applies to everything else that you're doing. So, everybody out there, don't overlook that.
Yeah, I think that's probably what offsets me from some people. The fact that I like to hunt it all. My gosh, I want to hunt everything, and I want to be good at it. I want to be the best elk hunter I can be, and the best predator caller I can be, and the best duck caller. And I'm not the best, but I strive to be the best at it. And it's just crazy. I mean, I want to. It's an illness. I'm sick, but I'm obsessed with the hunting. But the good Lord, He made a creation for He made it there, put it there for me to enjoy, and I'm going to enjoy it as long as I possibly can. And I hope that energy stays up because I still got a few more elk hunts in my body. I'm hoping anyway. So
Absolutely.
but I appreciate you guys. You do a great job. I enjoy visiting with you, and hopefully we can do it again.
Absolutely. Well, for all the viewers and listeners out there, thank y'all for watching and listening to the podcast, and we'll catch you back here in the next episode from the Southern Outdoorsman. And remember, guys, y'all stay Southern.